Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Coming up on today's edition of Business Daily. Korea's biggest sales event, Korea Sale Festa, ended up a success for the country's major retailers, but for consumers, it seems the excitement was a little less. This year's Nobel Prize in Economics went to two economists for their research into contract theory. What is contract theory and how can we apply it to modern-day economics? We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. But first, the Bank of Korea held its rate steady at 1.25% this month, but cut its economic growth outlook for next year by 0.1 percentage point. A number of factors that could weigh down growth both at home and abroad were cited as reasons for the downward revision. Our Shin Se-min starts us off.
Korea's central bank adjusted its growth forecast for the domestic economy next year to 2.8%, down from an original projection of 2.9% released in July. But it kept its growth outlook for this year untouched at 2.7%. This year's figure is shy of the government's target of 2.8% and its goal of entering the 3% range next year. The change in next year's forecast comes as the bank projects there will be downward risks, but also the potential for improvement.
Next year, there are factors that may help the economy recover. Once commodity prices pick up, you'll see growth momentum improve, especially in emerging economies.
But the BOK governor added that the central bank needs more time to gauge the impact of Samsung Electronics ditching its new Galaxy Note 7 smartphone and the effects of a prolonged strike from Hyundai Motor. With that, the central bank's monetary policy board left its benchmark rate unchanged at 1.25% for 4 straight months.
Unless something unexpected hits the economy next year, it's highly likely that the central bank will maintain its current stance of keeping the rate steady, since another rate cut would mean the BOK would need to abandon its yearly growth target of 2.8%.
But looming external uncertainties like the UK opting out of the European Union as well as low inflation still mean another rate move is not completely out of the picture.
Consumer price growth slowed even more from the first half of the year, logging a bare 0.8% growth in the third quarter, falling short of its 2% target. That is largely due to low prices in supplying factors like the oil prices, amid slowing global economic growth trend.
During the second special briefing held this year on explaining why the BOK has failed to meet its inflation target, the governor pointed out that monetary policy does in fact take time in influencing consumer prices. But he said the central bank will do its part to minimize the gap and will monitor prices in the long term to prevent potential economic fluctuations. Shin Se-min, Business Daily.
Samsung Electronics has begun its comprehensive recall of the troubled Galaxy Note 7 smartphone, offering a full refund or exchange to its customers. And if you happen to own the device, here's our Kwon Jang-ho with what you need to know.
After one exchange program failed to solve the crisis of the fire-prone Galaxy Note 7, Samsung Electronics is now killing off the troubled smartphone. Users are warned to turn off their device and return it to their telecoms retailer, where they'll be offered a full refund or an exchange to another device. In Korea, starting Thursday, customers can receive a full refund from their network providers through the end of the year. They can also choose to exchange their device with other Samsung models, such as the Galaxy S7, S7 Edge, or the Note 5. All customers will be provided with gift cards worth around $25, and those switching to another Samsung model will be given a voucher for $60 towards their phone bill. Any free accessories that were originally bundled with their device, such as the Gear VR, can be kept. Customers will also be allowed to change telecom providers if they so wish. Customers should get in touch with the relevant retailer for further details, including insurance plans and stock of exchanged devices. Recall programs in other countries have also begun, including the US, where all major carriers are also offering full refunds or exchanges, including full refunds on all related Note 7 accessories. Samsung is also working with online retailers such as eBay to facilitate exchanges for its customers. Users in other territories are encouraged to get in touch with their relevant retailers, as specific details on refunds and exchanges could differ in their markets. Kwon Jang-ho, Business Daily.
The first round of Korea's biggest sales festival, dubbed the Korea Sale Festa, wrapped up last weekend. And while it was a big win for retailers, experts say there is room for improvement in sales events to come. Our Kim Min-ji has this report.
Korea's biggest sales event appears to have paid off for the nation's major retailers. The Trade Ministry says duty-free stores saw the biggest jump in sales during the Korea Sale Festa, up nearly 30% from the Korea Black Friday event held this time last year. They were followed by online shopping malls and department stores. The figures were also given a boost thanks to an influx of Chinese visitors, as Beijing's week-long National Day holiday coincided with the shopping event.
I heard about the Korea Sale Festa and came here to check it out myself. There are many things to buy.
Roughly 340 retailers, manufacturers, and e-commerce companies participated in the event, offering discounts and promotions at tens of thousands of stores nationwide. It's the second year that the government has held a sales event like this, but it's still only regarded as a half success. While it may have been an opportunity for retailers to edge back into the black, the event also received a fair share of criticism. For one, some traditional markets didn't know that they were part of the event, discounts weren't that steep, and often didn't include newly released products or designer labels.
I'm not 100% satisfied with discounts offered, but I guess it's okay.
And while the main purpose of the event was to fuel domestic consumption, it's still seen as having a limited impact.
The question is whether consumers are willing to spend after the event is over. They need to keep spending if the whole purpose was to spur consumption. Instead of hundreds of companies taking part simultaneously nationwide during one sales period, it should have been held separately throughout the year. This would give consumers and tourists more reason to visit different parts of the country and consistently open up their wallets.
Experts add that now the government, as well as participating retailers and companies, need to step up efforts to continually fuel people's desire to spend as they enjoy ongoing cultural festivities, so that the massive sales event lives up to its name. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
Korea's growing household debt is continually making headlines, seen as one of the biggest threats to the economy, as millions borrowed from banks to buy homes. But now the question is, can they pay it all back? Our Lee Ju-young has more.
1.3 quadrillion won, or about $1.1 trillion. That's the amount of total household debt that Korea is expected to stack up by the end of this year. The main culprit? Experts point to eased mortgage regulations back in 2014 for those looking to buy homes in the Seoul metropolitan area.
We will ease conditions on mortgage loans like LTV and DTI for home buyers.
What started out with good intentions has turned into a ticking time bomb that could potentially rattle Asia's fourth largest economy. According to the Financial Supervisory Service, the amount of mortgage loans taken out by Koreans since the third quarter of 2014 has increased by roughly $325.8 billion. While borrowing became easier, banks, on the other hand, tightened their grip on the collecting end, wasting no time in sending letters of foreclosure to delinquent clients. The nation's financial watchdog said nearly 30% of foreclosures sent out over the past 4 years were those overdue on their payments by 90 days or less, while almost half were for payments missed by 4 months or under. Banks say these measures are inevitable in order to prevent loans from turning sour, and that they're being criticized for exercising their rights 2 months after payments are overdue. The nation's top financial regulator also says that this timeframe is not unreasonable compared to other countries, but added that it will review a so-called free workout system that allows people to extend repayment periods and pay back debt with greater stability. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
Bengt Holmstrom of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Oliver Hart of Harvard University were awarded this year's Nobel Prize in Economics for their work in contract theory this week. So what is this contract theory, and why does it deserve one of the most prestigious awards in the world? Let's find out.
A contract is a voluntary, deliberate, and legally binding agreement between two or more parties. And people often sign them as a way of creating incentives to avoid conflicts of interest and specify how to share any risks in the contractual relationship. So then, what is a contract theory and why has it won the Nobel Prize? The theory looks into how contracts are formed and how to draw up better contracts so that people with conflicting interests can stick to them. Going further, the theory helps people understand contractual relationships between workers and employers, businesses and suppliers, sellers and customers, and the list goes on. The creation of ideal contracts has been in the spotlight since the 1980s under the general equilibrium theory, which asserts that supply and demand in any market will sort out ideal conditions of business so that contracts will structure themselves accordingly. But that idea was not enough to account for real-world problems, like informational gaps between parties and incomplete agreements, leading to the birth of a more modern contract theory. So then, what lessons can Korea learn from this Nobel Prize-winning theory to better address issues surrounding corporate restructuring, performance-based pay, and family-run conglomerates?
And for more on this, Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Great to be here.
So I know we heard a little bit about it in the report just now, but could you tell us exactly what this contract theory is and also how it contributes to the study of economics?
Well, contract theory is about the better way to achieve the goal of the contract. For example, in the real economy, like in the used car market, when we sell and buy the used car, there are lots of cheatings because there is asymmetric information between buyers and sellers. So therefore, the problem is to minimize this asymmetric information problem and cheatings and moral hazard. So by redesigning the contract, we can reduce it.
Now, when we think about contracts, then we often think them in legal terms, but this contract theory actually won these economists a Nobel Prize in Economics. So how did this come about?
Well, we make contracts to increase our economic benefits. So contract is both of the social and legal decision and situation. So thanks to contract theory, there has been great improvements in real-world contract practices and lots of improvements in the curriculums of law schools. And these days, there are quite a few hybrid research between law and economics.
Now then, what new issues in modern day economics has this contract theory helped to address and solve?
Well, in addition to contract theory's academic breakthroughs, it has been really accepted and welcomed by the real economy because of its huge applications in the real economy. One of the most famous example is stock option payments to CEOs, which is very general payments in these days. So in private corporations, there are huge conflicts of interest between owners of the company and the management of the company. So one way to reduce that problem is in CEOs' wage contracts, they incorporate the owners or stockholders of economic profit, which is the stock price of the company. So that idea has been came from a contract theory.
All right, and the possibilities goes on, right?
Exactly.
All right, well, how would we apply this theory to Korea?
Well, as we talked about, contract theory can be applied to all economic problems in Korea, including corporate governance problems of the chaebol companies and privatization of the public companies and labor cost compensation to the workers, including wage peak systems.
Now then, how does this theory come into play when it comes to Korea's ongoing corporate restructuring drive?
Well, both professors, Professor Hart and Professor Holmstrom, are really against government-initiated bailout program for marginal companies because that worsens moral hazard problems of these companies. And they say that these other moral hazard related companies or marginal companies learn from these government's actions that even worsens the moral hazard problem even in the long run.
Now, some say that based on contract theory, the performance-based system that Korean government has been promoting all along will face limitations. So can you tell us more about this and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, between the two professors, actually, Professor Holmstrom is more expert on wage system. And at the beginning of his research, he really supported a performance-based payment system for all kinds of the workers. But as time goes by, he changed his mind. Actually, he divided between the two workers group, management level workers and typical routine job workers. So he still supports a performance-based wage system to the management.
Okay.
But for the routine job workers like tellers in the banks and high school teachers, he really supports fixed payment system because it is extremely difficult to measure the performance of these routine job workers.
All right, well then what would you say are some of the lessons that Korea can take away from this theory and addressing its own economic issues from here on out?
Well, the implication of contract theory is very simple actually. If there is asymmetric information, there is cheating. So we have to reduce it. So what is a good way to reduce it in Korea? The answer is we have to make every market very transparent by opening all the information related to the difficult situation and labor quality situation and everything. So that's the only way to improve all different kinds of contracts.
When did we know that contracts were so powerful, right? I mean, this just proves it right now.
Exactly, but I believe that since our contract system is pretty much depending on our tradition and customs, it takes a longer time than other Western countries to improve our contract system.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today, Professor.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end, but we'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. So don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching and see you soon.